Vulture begins now on a Wednesday afternoon, and today we talk names.
Yes, the big news from the celebrity world was that Tandy Newton was taking back her original name. So, yeah, she's a star of Westworld. She's been nominated, I think, for an Emmy in the upcoming awards as well.
Oh, is there a new season of that? I only saw the first one, but it was maybe the second one, too. Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, she's said to be a very well-respected actress in the field as well. But she's actually the daughter of a Zimbabwean princess and then a lab technician from Cornwall in England.
Oh,
she grew up in the UK,
I see.
in Cornwall. And her original name, the way it is spelt, is Thandiwe. And what they did in the school to kind of anglicize her in a Catholic school in Cornwall was they just took out the W completely. So her original name is supposed to be Tandiwe, which sounds Zimbabwean as well, but they took out the W and it's just Tandy. Tandy Newton is how she's known.
Yeah, it sounds kind of British, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's in all her film credits and everything like that. And so she came out in CNN and she said that she's going to take back the W. That's my name, and I feel that it's the right climate to do that in.
Right.
And so it's interesting because she said, throughout her career, she has experienced a bit of, in parts racism, and in just other parts, just otherness, being kind of not considered for certain roles, and also in ballet class and competitions.
Yeah.
She said because of the color of her skin, she feels she was overlooked a lot of time for awards and stuff.
Yeah. My Korean-American friend, he was a football player in high school. And the coach asked him his name. And he said his Korean name.
Yeah.
I won't say the names on air, but he said his name to the coach, and the coach said, "I can't remember that. I'll just call you this." Some white-sounding name.
It's random, right?
Right, which is, and then that's, the English name that stuck with him, because people asked him, "Oh, why is that your English name?" And that's how he got that name in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not good, is it? It's really, really bad.
Yeah, and that's the problem here. That's what Tandiwe Newton is trying to fight against. There's also this whole movement online, after the hate crimes that we've been seeing against Asians, culminating in that shooting in the States, many Asians have gone through this as well. Their names are difficult for Westerners in the dominant culture to pronounce, right? That's kind of an unavoidable fact. My wife's name is Yeon, right? That R sound is really difficult, right?
Yeah.
And to spell it out like EO, then people get confused like Seo, Seoyeon.
Yeah.
And my dad just called her Sion, and he tried. Every time he'd say, "Tell me how you say it, Sion," and he'd be like, "Sion."
Yeah, but that's the point, though. You're trying to say her actual name.
Yeah.
Right? You're not just giving her some nickname because it's easier for you.
Sure, but the issue, I guess, that comes around a lot of the time is like that. In school, maybe the teachers constantly get it wrong, and when you're young and you're growing up, you don't want that awkwardness, right? So you are like, maybe, okay, I'll choose a Western name. Sometimes even the parents of kids, immigrant parents, say, okay, we're going to give you a Western name because we want you to not, have to go through this trouble at school. And so now on social media, a lot of people are putting up their original Asian names.
Nice.
It's a movement out there. This is who I am. I do maybe have a Westerner name that I associate with, but I want everyone to know this as well. So it's really come into the fore.
We're talking names today in Culture Vulture. We'll pick it up when we come back. Here's David Guetta. Say my name. We're talking names today, and in Culture Vulture, it's a really interesting topic to discuss because from culture to culture around the world, the way that names are chosen is quite different, yeah?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the language behind them, the meanings behind them more, maybe even do a little quiz in the last part. But from these articles, I just went on this kind of dive deep into naming and how people from minority cultures feel about their names, and what it really means as well. And so they've done multiple studies on this. A recent one from Canada in 2017 showed that Pakistani, Indian, or Chinese origin names, they were fictitious resumes, but they were sent in with the same qualifications as Western names.
Oh, yeah, right.
Were like 30% less likely to get a call back from the interview.
Really sad, isn't it?
And obviously there is racism there, but there's also, and I found this interesting, just human psychology. Like if you're the interviewer, you're the recruiter, you don't know how to pronounce this spelled out in English, you're just going to feel awkward calling someone for an interview, right? If you call them up and you're like, I don't know how to pronounce your name. So they just avoid it in some cases. People are just it's not right, of course.
It's not the right thing to do, but I mean, it happens, I guess.
Yeah, and they also have done studies, and this depends on where you live, obviously, but if we're talking about dominant Western cultures where English is the first language, if you have a name that's easy to pronounce, so that's even among English names, the easier your name is to pronounce and remember, the more trustworthy you are in that person's opinion. So it automatically means, psychologically speaking, if you can't pronounce someone's name or you keep forgetting it,
you lose trust in that person.
Yes, because our caveman brains are programmed that we are more trusting of things we're familiar with, including language and lingo.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, so it's really deep. So
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So is that related to not just names but language as well? If you hear someone speaking a language that you don't understand, you automatically lose trust with them.
Of course. Well, that also makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because you don't understand what's being said. So to build up trust is very difficult.
That makes more sense to me than the name thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the name thing, I can see where that happens as well. And like with myself, I'm not good with names in general, English or Korean or any language. And if there's a person who repeatedly, I forget their name, or it was a Sarah or a Sarah, and I'd forget, I would just not talk to them as much, because I'm the kind of person who says someone's name a lot when I talk to them. And if I don't remember, it's not racism. It's just I don't want to feel awkward in that situation, right? And so it's a really multi-layered kind of debate here about what is best. Should you give not necessarily just Western names, but say I take my English kids, my British kids with difficult to pronounce names in Korea, should I give them a Korean name? I know many families here of expats who have Korean names and Western ones.
I understand your point, because you're basing that on what you just shared with us about the fact that if people are unfamiliar with their name or they don't know how to pronounce it, they're going to lose trust.
Right.
Also, if in jobs, it's been proven through studies that if you have a name that's not so easy to pronounce or unrecognizable or something like that, you have a lower percentage chance of landing an interview. So that would make parents think twice about the names that they choose for their kids, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, the general kind of, they said it was kind of a sad fact, is when you have like Korean names as well, but more so Chinese names with the Chinese characters in place. When you Romanize that, you lose the meaning. Because in China, you look at a name and you can tell what it means from the characters only. But once you spell it out and it's just sounds, you don't know what character that's come from. So in Korean as well, like everyone's name has a Chinese character meaning. Well, many. The Hanja meaning, right, behind it. If you look at the pure Korean, though, you don't know which Hanja it comes from, right? So they're saying in China, you know, that name has a big meaning when you see that, when you read it on a page. But then when that's translated to, I don't know, some English letters on a page, it loses its depth, you know, and there's... I don't know if anyone would say that's racist, like making you spell out your name in English in Romanization, whereas you want your full meaning from the Chinese characters. Does that mean everyone has to learn each native language to get the full meaning behind the name?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky issue, because when you're talking about writing names out in a language, for example, for international travel purposes, for your passport, as far as I know, the international rule is you have to write your names out with the English alphabet, right?
Yeah.
No matter what culture you come from, no matter what language or characters the name originally is in.
I think you have the native language and the English, both,
Yeah. But talking about a name losing its meaning when you put it down in a different way, that's a culture difference in itself, because I don't think, you know, if you write my name's Steve, so if you write it out Steve, but if you write it out in Korean, Steve,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, it means the same thing to me.
Sure, in English, there's no meaning attached to the actual alphabet letters.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in Chinese characters, each character has the meaning there. And so they were talking to these Chinese origin immigrants, and they were like, the older generation saying, it's awful that in English you lose that instantly when you put your name on a document.
I've never I don't think I've ever asked this question before, but in Western names, my name is Stephen Michael Hatherly. So first name, middle name, last name.
Yes.
That's very common.
Yes.
It's Peter. What is your middle name? Nam Bint. So once again, first, middle, and last. But in Korea, even though there's three names, there's the last name, and then the first name has the two separated words.
Yes.
Right.
But I've never asked the question, why is it two separated? I know it's not always the case. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's three. But in general, it's two, right? Is there any
Yes.
specific reason for that, culture-wise, or perhaps historically speaking?
I think a lot of the time you have the 돌림자, which we've talked about, that one character, which is the same amongst siblings. It could be the same amongst just the female siblings or the male siblings. And then the other character is usually, I believe, unique to that one individual. So you've got the family name, which is for the whole family, then the generational 돌림자, which is for that generation, and then the unique character. So it's just kind of practical.
So, for example, Kate, I'll use your name as an example,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So, Park Ji-hye, right?
Yep.
So if Kate had a sister, Park is a family name, and then Ji would be the thing that would connect the sisters together. Sure. Maybe your sister would be named Ji-yeon or something like
It's
that.
very close, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. See, this is interesting. I've lived here for so long. I never knew that that's kind of how families can commonly organize their name.
I think that's like a more common thing that's been done recently, but it has like an ancestral type of thing too. So going back, some of the 돌림자s, there's like an order that you do based on the generation that you're at. And this is because back in the day, they would have like second wives or they would get remarried. And there would kind of be like this, like the order of like which cousin and how far of a second uncle you are, it kind of gets tangled because and you'll have like a little sibling that's actually your grandfather or something like that. And so those names help you identify,
In the
you're
hierarchy
actually
kind of thing.
in this hierarchy.
It's almost like a title in a sense.
Almost, but it's part of your name.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying as well, like experts, that the name order as well, why do we have to change it? Family name comes first in a lot of Asian cultures because that's what's important, right?
Right.
Whereas in Western cultures, your individuality is important. But if you change the order when you go to a foreign country, you're changing what's important, right? Or you're kind of saying that. And so you have a lot of kids who have come from Asian backgrounds in Western countries, and they grow up quite confused about that. Which side do I want to be on? But it's odd that we have to choose.
Kim Yeona, international superstar.
Right.
Yoona Kim.
Exactly. Why do we have to do it that
Yeah,
way?
why does it need to be like that? Kim Yeona is not harder to say than Yoona Kim is, right?
Not at all.
You're just switching things around. Yeah, really interesting. It happens all the time in sports. All the time in sports, right?
Yeah, and there's
Not just sports too. I mean, I guess anybody who's popular, whose name commonly comes out in the media.
Yeah, and we don't do it the opposite in Korea, I don't think, right? We don't take a Western name
Yeah.
and say like Depp Johnny in the Korean headlines or
That's so
anything.
weird.
Although Korean superstar Rain, it's just Rain.
Maybe that's the way to go. Just have one syllable.
Yeah, that's it. Just name yourself after some weather. All right, we'll leave it there for the first hour of the program for today. Really interesting stuff talking about names today. We'll continue on with it in the second hour to finish up the first One Direction history.